Let's make this a poll question. Is Josh Heupel a top 3, top 5, or top 10 coach in the nation? Just off face value alone, Caleb, is Josh Heupel a top 3 football coach? And then we'll talk about some of the guys that are also vying for that position. Welcome to the program. Hit like and subscribe. Caleb, I think he is, and I've got a good argument why. What say you, sir?
You know, Dave, I think he is too. And I'm sure you're going to talk about him being able to coach the other side of the ball with defense now, which isn't always common. And I'll leave that to you, because I'm going to come to something that you guys are all going to laugh at me because y'all know me, and I hate doing this, and I hate being this person. But I think a big reason he's a top 3 coach is culture. And I think the thing that stood out to me.
Now, for those that are frequent, I just want to interrupt you for 1 second. For those that are frequent listeners and viewers of the program, this is Caleb pulling a little bit of 180, because I've talked about culture, and he's laughed at me because he thinks that's just kind of a gimmicky word that people throw around. And it is when they first get hired. Yes,
exactly. And I usually don't like buying into it because I think culture is so intangible, and you measure it with, I think culture develops by coaches who are good at their job, and then that comes. I may be wrong with Josh Heupel, and it stood out to me over the weekend with the Oklahoma game, and here's why. It filtered all the way down, and no one let anything slip. Josh Heupel said, it's the next game. It's the biggest game because it's the next one. It filtered down to Amari Thomas, which is, we're not winning this for Josh Heupel. We're winning this for Tennessee. That's our job. That's the culture Heupel instilled. But then you saw the end of the game, and you saw, you know what? They had the perfect balance of, we know this is just our job. It's another game. But also, Josh, coach, the players, you could tell were thinking, coach doesn't have to tell us. We're just going to put in the little extra for him because he deserves that, because we want to do this for him. He didn't ask them to do that for him. He did not make it about him all week. And I actually do believe him, Dave, that he did not say, and you probably know this more than I do, I'm guessing he did not make one comment to the players about his time at Oklahoma, did he, during that time? At all.
I think if so, it was 30 seconds or less. I think it was about like the post game, which is 20 seconds or less. So I think if so, he said it was very short. I can tell you that when we spoke with Cooper Mays, the Vol Report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee, integrity matters. I can tell you that Cooper was not aware that he was fired as Oklahoma's co-offensive coordinator the Sunday before the game. Now, what happened between that time or not, I'm sure he addressed it to some extent, but I don't think it was the main topic of focus as far as go out there and win because I'm going back home. Now, let's take a look at those that are vying to be the top coach in the nation, okay? Kirby Smart's got to be number 1, right? 2
Absolutely.
championships. It's not even close, especially now that Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh are gone. So this is shaking things up considerably to see 2 of what I would say would have been the top 3 coaches move on to the NFL and retirement, respectively. So next, I think it's Kalen DeBoer, and I'm basing this off of what he's done. Kalen DeBoer is now at Alabama, and you have his history of taking Washington to the college football playoff, and they look pretty good so far. So, and I'm going to get to Heupel's accomplishments pre-Tennessee. But, Caleb, I think you would have to place Kalen DeBoer higher than Josh Heupel right now. Do you agree or disagree?
I mean, if you're going just based off resume, yes,
well,
but
then it's not just based off resume.
It's because of what they're doing right now as a head coach, is what you're saying, too, right?
Right, and you can factor in a little bit of what they're going to do. But right now, you and I can get into the weeds about whether or not Jalen Milroe is a great fit with Kalen DeBoer's offense. But right now, they're looking pretty good.
So this is a power ranking of head coaches, basically.
Well, not really, but as far as who you would hire, how about that? Okay, so it is kind of a power rank. Regardless, Kalen DeBoer, you can disagree. I would argue that given the fact he's taken the team to the college football playoff, that an athletic director would be more apt to call him than, not at Alabama, but at Washington, call him And now that what he's done at Alabama, I would say that has to be considered an elite coach. Let's not forget Washington is not a fantastic program, and they made the college football playoff, and that's no small feat. Now, some other names that I'm going to throw out there. Kyle Whittingham at Utah deserves mention as one of the best coaches in the country. However, his teams have lost 4 or more games in the past 3 seasons. So that's a negative.
He does as good of a job as you can do at that program. Is that fair to say? Yes,
but he never takes a bigger program, which makes me think that he doesn't want to compete at a bigger program. He does as good as he can. That's right. But they've lost 4 games
like Gary
or more.
Patterson at TCU.
Yes. Yeah. Gary Patterson loves TCU. His talk is, people talked about him as a possible successor to one of 58 coaches that Tennessee has had and fired. He was never going to leave Texas based off all the sources that I've had. All right. So I take Heupel above Whittingham. Now, Dabo Swinney has 2 national championships, but he's had turnover in his staff since those championships, including Brent Venables to Oklahoma. So right now, I'm taking Heupel over Dabo Swinney. Stop me if you disagree.
I mean, I would hire Heupel over a Dabo Swinney. In a heartbeat. And look, in terms of resume, and Dabo Swinney's going to the College Football Hall of Fame. Dabo Swinney gets a lot of credit, but Dave, Dabo Swinney is the classic case of a program success. Half of it has to do with the circumstances of when he took over that program.
Let's put it this way. Clemson would or would not hire Josh Heupel over Dabo Swinney right now if their athletic director was strapped to a lie detector test. Yes or no?
Over Josh Heupel or in general?
They would hire Heupel over Swinney right now.
Oh, yes. Yes, they would. Yeah. I think they would.
Agreed.
I think they would.
Agreed. All right, let's keep going. Florida State's Mike Norvell deserves to be in the conversation, but they're falling apart this year. Do you think that Florida State would take Heupel over Mike Norvell?
God, yeah, they would open the checkbook. They would pay they would pay all of Mike Norvell's buyout to get Heupel.
Oregon's Dan Lanning needs to be in the conversation. By the way, Florida State is 1-3 in Norvell's 5th season as the Seminoles head coach, so we ruled him out. Dan Lanning has received plenty of attention for going 25-5 at Oregon, but he took over a program that was rolling. Now we're going to get into that, which will, of course, take us to Ohio here in just a second. You have to factor in that Josh Heupel took a program that was an absolute dumpster fire, correct?
Correct. If you're an average athletic director, you're hiring Josh Heupel over Dan Lanning. You're not doing it if you're Oregon. You know why? Oregon has had cutting-edge offenses for so long. They are desperate to, they think that this is their way to win with War Daddies, is getting Dan Lanning.
You mean without War Daddies?
No, they think that Dan Lanning will get them the War Daddies from the South.
Well, he's not going to. There's not enough kids that are going to go over to Oregon or Southern California or UCLA from the South. When you say War Daddies, just so everybody knows, we're talking about the 315-pound kids that can move. It's not going to happen. They believe that could happen, and they hope that could happen, but it's not.
They might open up. Look, Oregon might open up the checkbook.
Yeah, but not more so than Tennessee. And all these kids, or at least 75-80% of them.
No, not more so than Tennessee, but maybe more so than Georgia or Alabama or LSU.
Okay, but anyway, point being, would you take Dan Lanning or Josh Heupel?
No, I'd still take Josh Heupel.
Okay, I agree.
Hey now.
All right, let's keep going. So,
and by the way, all of this is based on the fact that Josh Heupel can go toe-to-toe with any of these coaches who are defensive-minded. We saw that over the weekend.
Good point. Texas Steve Sarkisian, bless his heart. I hope everything's fine. But you wouldn't take Sarkisian over Heupel because of the way things went down at Southern California. I hope the drinking problem is all taken care of. We've all had our issues. But if at face value you had to take one of two, you would take, forget about who you like, but you would take Josh Heupel, right?
Yeah, you can't take that risk. It reminds me of about 15 years ago when Josh Hamilton was looking like the best player in baseball for the Rangers, and the Dodgers, I think, had a chance to get him or lock up Matt Kemp. And they're like, we're going to lock up Matt Kemp because as much as we like Josh Hamilton, he had those horrible drug problems in the past. You just can't take the risk of the relapse.
Okay.
If you're choosing between the two.
Agreed. Ryan Day at Ohio State. I don't think I think that we're a little bit too tough on him. I think he could potentially win the big one. I think he could potentially be a great coach. But I go back to the argument that he took over a program that was rolling. Josh Heupel has rebuilt the program. That to me is more impressive than Ohio State beating everybody on their schedule except for Michigan recently, and they've lost 3 straight. Who you taking?
I'm taking about 25 coaches over Ryan Day. So, of course, I'm taking Josh Heupel.
I know you're not high on Ryan Day, but I wanted to be really fair to him. Our poll question is, what do we got on the poll question?
So, Josh Heupel is a top 3 coach, top 5 coach, top 10 coach. Man, it's going back and forth between top 3 and top 5 for the plurality, like 40 to 43%, roughly 17 to 20 say top 10.
Now, the coach that truly rivals Josh Heupel for that 3rd spot may rankle your feathers. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. The other coach that is competing with Josh Heupel for a spot on the entire NCAA coaching ladder is Lane Kiffin. That's the other coach you have to suggest. What he's doing at Ole Miss just doesn't get done at Ole Miss. Wake Forest recently bought out of their home and home, and nobody wants to play them. And Ole Miss is now playing nobody. Basically, they played Wake Forest. We'll get to schedules in a second. But I think you and I both believe that already what Josh Heupel's done with less resources at Ole Miss is pretty darn impressive. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss is beyond incredible. And we talk about building a culture, and we think Lane Kiffin has no culture. I think, honestly, the personality of Lane Kiffin makes it conducive to him being the one guy who can cobble a bunch of players from the transfer portal and get them to play together. And, I mean, he's got a unique skill. Now, again, can Lane... Part of this is... Let me ask you this, Dave.
Lay it on me.
Do we still... You say Josh Heupel, a top 3 coach. You're down to hiring him or somebody else. But then you're told Josh Heupel can't bring Rodney Garner and Tim Banks with him.
I'm still hiring Josh Heupel because I think he's brought in guys and elevated guys that were better than I thought. I wasn't crazy about elevating Alec Ablin. I'm not crazy about elevating Joey Halsley when Alex Golish left. However, I've been proven wrong. I think it's been seamless and moved on. So I don't worry so much about Ellerby. I think this offense would pull in, well, I'll take a bigger picture than that. Sure, the offense would get any coach excited because they do run the ball. Any offensive line coach that watched that would see that. However, on the flip side, Josh Heupel has shown he could win. So if he up and went to another school, which he's not going to do, defensive coaches would follow him as well. So no, I don't care if he leaves all by himself, which he wouldn't, or not. I think he would, if he left, he'd bring guys, but he'd bring his staff as well. So no, I don't think it's a package deal. I think that argument held true for Lane Kiffin when he was immature and young in 2009. Had they not had the package deal with Monty and Ed Orgeron and all those guys, I don't think Lane Kiffin gets that job, but I'm not sure who does. But I don't think that argument holds up with Heupel.
Okay, I mean, I'm probably with you. I think he'd find the right guys. What we notice is on the defensive side, on the offensive side, he promotes from within because it's all his offense. On the defensive side, he goes out and finds guys that fit. I mean, William Ing just turning out to be a heck of a linebackers coach that he hired. So I'm with you. He would find guys if he couldn't get Tim Banks and Rodney Garner. I think what stands out with Heupel, even over Lane Kiffin, though, is Heupel really is. I don't know many coaches that run the offense Heupel runs, Dave, and couldn't win a game the way Heupel won it on Saturday at the same time.
Well, obviously Lincoln Riley couldn't because he couldn't do so at Michigan. And I didn't even include him in my list of coaches that should be considered elite. Should I have?
No. He totally, that was some of the most, he didn't know how to sit on a lead, by the way. I don't know, we're going to get to football IQ later, but yes, Lincoln Riley shouldn't be in there. He mismanaged to get a physical ground and pound game because he didn't know how to adjust when they were playing over the weekend. So he deserves a lot of criticism for that. And people will say, oh, but he did it against LSU. No, guys, Brian Kelly lost that game. Lincoln Riley didn't win it.
Agreed.